Welcome to all entrepreneurs. I hope you're having a great day. This is Tony Brancatella with another Starting a Business e-learning video class. As usual, we always start with a lecture, but this class, number 4, what I'd like to do is start with a different way, and I'll show you a video. So hold on, here comes the video. It's about 15 minutes long. Take a look at it, and then we'll continue the class.
Thank you all for joining us today. We wanted to have an informal discussion about starting up and what it's like to be in your shoes. So basically, let's take it from the top. Kim, kind of go over who you are and what you do and all that good stuff. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kim Kalp. I co-founded Zine Pack, like magazine pack. It'll be 3 years in January, and we create custom publications for entertainers, brands, and celebrities.
Cool. And Adam.
Yeah, Adam Braun, founder of Pencils of Promise, a nonprofit organization, although I like the term for purpose a lot better, but technically we are a nonprofit, and started on the side of my job. I used to work at Bain as a management consultant, started with $25 about 5 years ago, trying to build one school in the developing world. Now 5 years later, we've broken ground on about 150 schools. We're opening up a new school every 90 hours at this point. Working in 4 different countries, focusing on 3, Guatemala, Ghana, and Laos. And we're based here in New York, and we also train teachers and provide scholarships so that we don't just build the schools, but we build the bridge for the kids to continue on past primary, not to secondary.
Right.
Cool. My name is Nick Hill. I'm one of the co-founders of Back to the Roots, and we started off as an urban mushroom farm, and now we're developing products to connect families to food again.
Cool.
I'm Walter Driver. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Scopely. We're a mobile interactive entertainment network. So we provide central business and technology services for interactive entertainment companies like game companies all over the world, distributing their games and helping them monetize them at scale.
So I want to start off by addressing Adam here. I had the opportunity to basically tune into one of your TEDx talks at Columbia College. And I think you said something that will really hit home with all of the entrepreneurs here and in the sort of the viewing public. You said basically get uncomfortable or get yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a lot of the starting point for various entrepreneurs. There's a lot of great ideas, but at the end of the day, you as an entrepreneur have to find one thing that you tremendously believe in. And I think that a lot of people spend time within their comfort zone. Like you have this bubble of friends or locations or almost industries where you define that as your expertise, but I think a lot of these like really amazing ideas and passions that we find, they get sparked when you are removed from your comfort zone. And so in that talk, I was at Columbia College, so I was addressing college students, and I was sharing with them that especially when you're young, when you're able to take a risk, that's the period in which you should really leave your comfort zone, and you start to discover not just what you are, but essentially who you are.
And I guess, could you all sort of address like how you felt uncomfortable as an entrepreneur and how you've grown from that? Or if anyone has a specific incident where they felt uncomfortable, but they felt like maybe that helped them sort of achieve that next step somehow?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps to always be uncomfortable. I tell my staff all the time, if you're not uncomfortable once a week, then we're not being innovative enough. If you're not scared about something that you're pushing to do, we're doing something wrong. So I think being uncomfortable constantly is something that you have to do. It's a necessity to innovate your company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm literally that anxiety is, I think, a good thing. Like probably as anxious I am today as it was when we first gave up our jobs to grow mushrooms. Like, we've built this huge history and like have distribution now, but still feel that same uncomfortableness and anxiety because like, you're pushing the boundary, trying to keep on pushing faster. So it's a good thing, I think. It motivates you.
And you're quiet about this.
Yeah, so I gave a talk to our company recently about how I don't want you to be happy here, I want you to be uncomfortable. and
I want to work there.
Yeah, exactly. But that's, as these guys have alluded to, I think being in a constant state of being comfortable, being uncomfortable is sort of what it's all about. You have to basically fight this inertia that's always pulling you back towards homeostasis of just like whatever. Okay, we pushed through this uncomfortable period, and now we can settle in, and like we figured it out. And we can keep doing this, and as soon as that happens, you start dying. as a company, you know, as a person, I think you have to keep pushing yourself forward and try and find the new challenges, or the company is probably not going to keep growing the way it was in the previous stage when you were pushing forward.
Yeah, I mean, the analogy that I always try and kind of picture when I think about how the company should be operating and moving is it's like watching a toddler walk for the very first time. And you know how they almost kind of tip over, but then they catch themselves and they kind of stumble? I feel like as a company, that should be the way in which you are experiencing life. It's like I'm pushing myself so far that I'm uncomfortable and it feels like this thing might not make it. But somehow we're going to catch ourselves, and that's the momentum that's necessary to kind of force it forward.
It's interesting. You all have very varied backgrounds. Obviously, Walter, you were an actor, or you were trying to be an actor. I'm not really sure about your background. I'm sorry. No offense.
It's okay.
And Kim was working in publishing, and Adam, you were in management consulting, and you were the only one who actually went to business school. So I'm wondering, you know, maybe you all have an opinion about this, but how did that prepare you for entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so we were both actually undergrads at Berkeley, so like an undergrad business program. So Alex was an undergrad business and education. I was poli-sci business. So it was, you know, we came across the idea in a class, the business ethics class. So I mean, I think the biggest thing for me of being in that environment is being exposed to a lot of different ideas, which is really cool. And you know, I think for looking back in college too, I think that's the biggest thing. And look, you know, we've go back to Cal a lot and just kind of talk to kids too, and so just push yourself. You have 4 years of your life where you have the chance to like get out there and explore so many different things and not be bound to, you know, one certain path. And like for me, I had the chance to spend 6 months abroad in Ghana and West Africa, which really kind of shaped the company later, and just joining organizations, and especially in the Bay Area, there's so many startups out there, and it's just a really cool environment to be like exposed to a lot of cool ideas. So that's
Right.
definitely a big influence.
So maybe that's a matter of, maybe that's what it boils down to, is being open to these experiences, and maybe you don't go out of your way to sort of learn that one specific thing, you know, that is how to start up a company, but you're open to all these sorts of different things. I don't know, maybe you can sort of touch on that.
I definitely took an unusual path for a technology entrepreneur. I studied creative writing at Brown University, and actually wound up going to Los Angeles after a screenplay that I wrote during college was optioned, and so I sort of started learning the entertainment industry. But while it seems like an unusual path, I think actually writing is a great preparation for being an entrepreneur, because especially writing movies, you're thinking about how someone else that you are not in front of right now is going to feel over a period of time, like an emotional trajectory of somebody else that you're helping create. And I think building a product or a service is very similar. It's thinking about how other people are going to feel when they encounter this and their emotional response. Not just when they first encounter it, but when they encounter it for the 30th time or the 400th time. So I think you can constantly be surprised how many things relate back to starting businesses, and for me, writing was sort of the foundation.
I mean, you can write, though, and you can be creative, but taking that step to start a company, what takes that? Like, what makes you, what propels you to take that second step, or that, you know, what ends up being the 10th or 12th
We're all
step?
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just being fed up or not waiting for somebody else to do it. If you really want something or you want to see something, it's like, you know, I heard somebody the other day say, you know, there's this they. Well, they'll do something about it, or they'll fix that. It's like, who is they? They is like an imaginary being. Like, you are they. Like, if you want to see something or you want a product or a service, it's up to you to make it or create it.
The other thing I would say, and this isn't an absolute, because I know a lot of really great entrepreneurs who weren't this way, but most of the entrepreneurs that I know have been that way since they were little kids. Like, they were the ones that were selling baseball cards. They were running the March Madness tournament. When you were in middle school, they were, you know, finding ways. Yeah, I mean, literally, one of my really good friends from high school, he was an entrepreneur when we were, again, high school students, but he was the guy who had an ice cream truck. And everybody else used to work at, like, a camp or something like that. He has a company called Van Leeuwen's Ice Cream, which is ridiculously successful.
So good.
It's all over the city.
Yes.
You see it. That's one of my closest friends from high school, and he's been that way since we were 14 years old. And so I think that thing that exists within entrepreneurs, it's not like you suddenly wake up one day and suddenly think, oh, I want to go do this. It's always there, just some maybe, you know, level of of frustration rises within you, and then you're like, all right, I need to go do this and get back to the way that I naturally am.
So you're born an entrepreneur?
I think it's a product of, obviously everything's a product of your natural
Yeah,
genetics, but it's a product of your early experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that. I think that the way in which you're brought up, the way in which like you encounter things as a kid, you might or might not, it doesn't have to be, but for a lot of people you develop this default that allows you to be kind of uncomfortable and also come alive in the uncertainty of entrepreneurship.
How has being, I guess, sort of played your hand or tried your hand at acting, how has that helped your background, or how has your background helped?
I'm
Helped
acting like a tech
in an
entrepreneur, yeah.
No, I mean, imagine like, so for instance, public speaking. You're an amazing public speaker. I mean, I imagine an acting background would be very helpful for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I think certainly everyone should take improv classes. And just in life, it's really one of the greatest skills you can have is to learn how to actually interact with people in real time in a spontaneous way and keep conversations moving. But yeah, acting is. I never really meant to be an actor, and I didn't have a ton of formal training, but I did wind up doing a little bit of it, and I think it is great training to be an entrepreneur as well, because you go into sort of room after room after room with lots of executives sitting around, often, you know, who are totally stone cold, not saying anything, and you're in this room with cameras all around you, and you're trying to convince them that you are the person that they've been waiting for. And it's not unlike walking into a room with a venture capitalist or a group of investors or people that you're trying to close for a partnership. They're sitting around and they've been seeing all this stuff they're not interested in, and you have to walk in and there has to be something different the minute you come in the room, and they have to sort of like light this spark of belief that you're the person that they've been waiting for that's going to do something really interesting. And that's exactly the same.
So I'll just
Yes.
add one interesting thing in here, which very few people know, but one, we have a mutual friend who actually introduced us a couple of years ago. That mutual friend it encouraged me to take improv classes as well in college. And I was a college basketball player. And so being like Division I college basketball, I was like, well, I'm not going to go do improv. And I went on semester at sea at my junior year, which kind of introduced me to the developing world for the first time, completely changed my life and kind of led me in the path that I'm on now. And one of my friends on the ship one night was like, hey, there's this improv group that's getting together at 8 p.m. in this room. You should totally come. And I was like, nah, no way. And the second day he came back. It was so much fun. It was hysterical. They're really open. Like, you know, and I think there's this sense of kind of like bravado to athletes. And trying out improv is hands down not only one of the most difficult, but one of the most vulnerable situations that you can be in. And I ended up going and like joined this group, and throughout semester at sea, I eventually put on like 2 improv shows. I've never done anything like it since, but now I do a lot of public speaking, and hands down, the experience of going through improv classes not only makes you so much stronger on stage, because I think you can't fake authenticity. And when people stand up with a pre-written speech, it just doesn't work with an audience. And ultimately, as an entrepreneur, as Walter's saying, every room that you walk into, you're essentially on stage. You know, you're being evaluated and tried out. And I think there is a lot that people don't realize. Like, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, I would recommend that people actually go in and try an improv class at some point.
I agree. I did a class as well, and I think more than
Oh my
you know,
God, I
public
love it. The
speaking
secrets
or,
are
yeah.
coming out.
I think more than public speaking and sit up straight and whatever. I think it's also this kind of openness. Like, you have to learn to be open, and I guess that's a little bit uncomfortable too. But whether you're going into a pitch meeting or a VC meeting or even a conference, it's learning to be able to walk up to someone and say, "Hi, my name's Kim," and not "What can I get out of you?" or "What can you do for me?" or it's more of, "I want to hear your story and I want to hear your struggle." And I think a lot of that is improv too, is you're trying to build this rapport and you're building this interaction with people. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's a large part of entrepreneurship, and really whether it's getting employees to come on when you're working at your house, or it's getting investors to come on. It's building rapport and getting people to, again, like you said, Walter, believe in what it is that you're creating. So I totally agree. Classes are huge.
Where do the best ideas come from?
I think they come from totally disparate spaces, and when they end up weirdly colliding with each other, and you draw from like your personal experiences and realize, I'm the only person in the history of the world that can go execute this specific thing. Hopefully it's like a good idea as well. But I'm sure from each of your guys' experience, like, I had done all this backpacking in the developing world, but I had this kind of formalized finance background, and then the economy was in a really bad place, so I knew a lot of people weren't going to have jobs and were going to look to volunteer. You know, this millennial generation was the first one that was told, like, you can be anything you want, and actually believed it, and so then we wanted to go out and do it. And I had a conversation with two friends the night that I started the organization. One was in the morning with a girl who worked for an organization. I was like, oh, you work for them? She said, no, it's a totally volunteer force. Everybody volunteers on the side of our jobs. And I was like, that's a cool idea. I wish I had something to work on the side of my job. And then a friend of mine that I went for a walk with in Central Park that afternoon had left a very safe job to create a tech startup. And I was like, I really admire your courage to take a risk, because I want to work in finance for 20 years and then take my money and start an organization. He was like, no, now's the time. Now is when you can take the risk. When you're in your 50s, you're going to have a house and a mortgage and cars and your kid's college education to pay for. And a wife. And a wife. And you're not going to be able to take the chance. So now is the time. And like those two ideas and all of these others hit one night 5 years ago to come up with this idea. And I don't think ideas come from like these linear things coming together. It's actually all these disparate spaces connecting.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in Venn diagrams and sort of what Adam was alluding to. I think about getting outside of your comfort zone is sort of like take the experiences you have and then go find some context where no one like yourself has been, like go to Cambodia and investigate how the school systems work there, and then suddenly you start to be part of a very small group of people that has your perspective previously that has now been in this context, and then there are less people that you would be competing with or that would have had this idea. So, I mean, if you're on a very well-established path and you can see that a lot of other people have walked in front of you and you want to be an entrepreneur, get off of that path. Put yourself in an area of overlapping circles that gets very small and has combustible elements.
One thing I think if people like ask for like if you have a product idea, I think the biggest thing we've learned is like if you have an idea, it's all about sharing it. Like I think when we first had this idea, we went out there and did like farmers markets just weekend after weekend after weekend, and with our new product, the Aqua Farm, like we had like a concept and idea, and we asked our buyer, like, can we just go to a Whole Foods and just demo a fake product just to learn? Like it's not in the system. We just want to go in there and talk to customers and like learn and get their feedback. And it's just that I know even with the new product, we launched it on Kickstarter and got it funded through there. And we had a lot of people telling us like, don't do that. People are going to copy your idea. Hold it close to you. And I just think it's just crap. Like you got to go out there and share it, and it's all about. I mean, we all feel it's all about execution, not the idea. Like you're going to learn so much from getting out there. So, I mean, if it's like a physical part of it, like go out there to a store, to a farmer's market, and just talk to 1,000 customers, and I guarantee you, like after 1,000 customers, you'll know if that's going to be successful or not.
And the validation from a successful crowdfunding campaign can be also a big help.
It was huge. Yeah, I mean, for us, we were trying to tell Whole Foods Whole Foods and Nordstrom to carry a fish tank, and like it was huge to go back to them and be like, look, there's demand out there, and they all got excited about is tapping into that, like it's connecting families to food, and that's something they can all get behind, and that's the biggest thing to learn is like when you're creating a product, if you can tap into that why, it just opens up so many more doors.
Totally, and I think to build off that, you kind of get the why by listening. I feel like our main thing is, as much as it is talking to people, when Brittany and I started, it was listening and watching, almost like a little voyeur. For us, it was 2008, publishing was going down, physical music sales was going down, and it was watching saying, people aren't consuming less music and people aren't reading less. They're obviously literate. They're not getting something, and what are they not getting? And let's watch and see. And for us, it was coming up with the concept of Zine Pack. If you're going to ask somebody to get in their car and drive to a store and buy something, you better give them something they can't download and sit in their tidy-whities at home and do, because they'll do that.
That's the image you have.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll sit at home and download all the music they want to download, and not, but if you want them to go out and get something, and for us it was like, building a magazine and music and putting it together into something and filling it with patches or guitar picks or posters or, all of these things that couldn't be downloaded or you couldn't get anywhere else, and really having people have a space to go to get that product. So we did all the ticketing for Mumford & Sons this summer and really created these awesome passports that we sent out to everybody that was personalized. It says, this passport belongs to Adam Braun, and you got it 2 weeks before the event, and really kind of elevating the experience. And we got that from watching people and going to concerts and seeing people take their tickets, scan it at the door, and promptly throw it on the floor, or it's covered in beer, or it's littered all over MSG, and saying, well, that stinks, because I used to remember getting tickets and putting them on a pin board in high school, and Newfound Glory and all of these old tickets that I used to have. And
Oh,
why
yeah, you
don't
put them in a photo album.
totally?
You know,
And
with
why
the
don't
pictures.
people do that anymore?
Okay, photo albums aren't even really around anymore.
Scrapbooks,
Yeah.
but like keeping something and saying like, oh, that, you know what, that was an awesome show, and like seeing the Rolling Stones, that was once in a lifetime, and I'll never get that opportunity again. And seeing that with ticketing and really trying to elevate by watching people, not even talking to them, but watching and seeing like, what do they do when they get there, and seeing that action was really powerful for us.
All right, well, thank you all very much. Really appreciate each of you coming to speak to me today. Entrepreneur appreciates you, and want to thank Impact Showcase for hosting.
Hope you enjoyed that video. It was brought to you by Entrepreneur.com. Entrepreneur.com is one of the fundamental sites that you should go and always browse for. Very informative stuff that could help you in your future in your business. So what's the main message you've got out of this video? I mean, you got a lot of messages. Yes, the feedback and the survey. We're going to discuss that on another lesson for sure. But this one really is about really being uncomfortable. I think it really stood out was the fact that you should not feel comfortable in your position. And as much as you do, this is where I guess you feel a different types of feeling internally and you would feel externally. And in a lot of cases, though, you take a look at yourself in general and how you react to certain situations, being uncomfortable and being comfortable. But in life, you know, there is all kinds of situations that or excuses that we find to not get out of a comfortable zone. Like say per se, we're always easily to say things like, well, sorry I'm late. And this is really something that you have to understand, that it's just an excuse to something. Are you really sorry that you're late? So if you think about managers, you know, managers that hear things like that, you know, they hear all kinds of things about employees when they come into work, and excuses of that they use. And one excuse, of course, is, sorry, I am late, but traffic, you know, was crazy, was late, was outrageous. Or sorry, I'm late, but I need to pick up my shirts. Or sorry, I'm late. Sorry for being late. It's really not my fault. It just happened. It's just life that got into the way. Well, all these kind of excuses really don't get you out of your comfort zone, and really just keep you in there. And it's very hard to be responsible for our actions and say, well, you know what, I am late, and no, it's not a question of being sorry. You know, psychologists in life have looked at many things about individuals, and even though most of us fancy ourselves to be unique, psychologists, you know, they have spent years etching out patterns in our personality traits that suggest we share some very similar qualities. And those who believe they are capable of controlling events in their lives, and those who don't. Where do you rank? Where do you put yourself? So there is a little test, of course, a little exercise I want you guys to take, and I will follow this. And this really, to take a look at the controlling part, is really called the locus of control. The locus of control, locus is your sense of control in the world. This could be inside or exterior, internally or externally for sure. So locus of control has been applied in numerous situations, really. It could build strong marriages. It could make you better in sports, in corporations. Also, organizations, they use this to hire certain people that they're looking for important positions, or if not poor positions. So they really look at this also. It also has been used to lower the effects of stress, increase job satisfaction, encourage certain employees to personally be responsible for their actions. Employees are not, this is one thing you should always be looking at, is reducing stress and be controlling of your responsibilities. So the person that came in late that morning and said, sorry, I got stuck in traffic. do you think that was? External or internal? So the locus of control really is a theory called social learning theory. And this theory really suggests that an expectation is always reinforced. So when where the expectations, events, or behaviors actually occur in the future, whether or not one believes they have control over the causes of the reinforcement determines the outcome. So individuals who believe that their own behavior or characteristics determine or cause events possess an internal locus of control. If someone's reinforcement following an action is not entirely dependent upon their actions, but instead perceived as being lucky, fate, chance, or other forces beyond their control, this is called an external locus of control. Which one do you have? Well, let's try to answer that question. What will follow is 20 little statements, and you'd have to pick true or false. And I'll put it on the board now, and you can take a look at it. You can pause the screen, and what I'd like you to do is just answer true or false. You don't necessarily have to write them all down, the questions, but do take a piece of paper, and I did not put up the exercise number because this is really a small exercise. It's really extra, but if you like, yes, do put your name on top. Again, we're still in module 1, and this would probably be YT number 3. And so you can put that down. This is like I said, it's an extra exercise, so it's not really important for you to be detailed. And just answer true or false to the following statements. Great. So hopefully you paused the screen to answer them all. So I will go forward. Once you have answered them all, here are the points that you can get. As you can see on the top right, it says true, false, and points. Well, here we go. So if you've answered the question number 1, I usually get what I want in life, true, then give yourself 5 points. And just down the list, all the way to number 20, where it says other people usually control my life, 5 points if that is false. Again, these things you should always try to be as honest as possible, because it really stands out for yourself, and it really works only if you are as honest to yourself about this as possible. So once you've added them all up, you can pause this screen to add up your score. Once you've added up your score, this is the way it's broken down. So if you have 0 or 15 points, well, then you have a very strong external locus of control. 20 to 35, then you'll have an external locus of control. If you have accumulated 40 to 60 points, well, you're pretty much in the middle, and you have both external and internal locus of control. So you sway from one side to the next. 65 to 80 points gives you an internal locus of control, and of course if you have 85 or 100, well, then you have a very strong internal locus of control. So here really the locus of control, internal or not, or external, it's really up to, we're all different, the way we look at things and how we take control of our situations, or have everybody else around us make the decisions for us. So that's really locus of control. So as I say many times, don't say you're sorry. So now, if you say you're sorry, what do you think? Do you have internal or external locus of control? Thanks for your attention, and that's it for today. And we'll see you next time here on the e-learning video class.